Good afternoon. I'm Connie Frisbee-Houde. I'm curator of the Clothing and Textile Collection here at the New York State Museum. And today I'm going to be talking about Halloween and the possibilities of dressing up for Halloween. If you look at the history of Halloween, it began in various different ways. No one knows for sure. It could have been a Celtic festival from about 2,000 years ago called Samhain, and it was Summer Eve, and it was moving from the light into the dark, and people were looking for some way of celebrating. And Christianity wanted to have a part in it, so one of the popes decided that he would create a liturgical feast day, and the Day of the Dead developed from there. You have the Day of the Dead in Mexico. And as people came to the US, they brought their ideas and traditions and so on with them. And in England, the idea of dressing up on All Hallows Eve was so that you wouldn't be recognized by the spirits that might want to do you harm. So America has developed its own specific Halloween traditions. And when I started to look into this and see what we had in the museum, I came across these postcards here that are for a carnival that was held in Albany in 1904 and 1905. They had these drawings and made these postcards for these different gates for the areas where the parades and the carnival would be held. And they had several different parades: businessmen's parades, automobile parades, the Queen's Parade, and they did all kinds of dressing, and it was a big celebration. But unfortunately, revelers got out of hand, and so they decided to shut it down, and it stopped after only 2 years. So how do you choose what costume to wear, or who you want to portray for Halloween? Some people have talked about the fact that we all wear a costume every day. We choose what we wear. Each one of us has a different style and different pattern. And now in these days of wearing masks, you can see that come out in people's face masks and what they're choosing to wear. But at different times, people made their own costumes rather than necessarily going out and buying a store-bought costume. So we have 3 Butterick patterns here: one for Little Bo Peep, one for Little House on the Prairie, and one with a pilgrim. And these were choices that people could make for their children or for themselves to wear. Then I started to look at some of the toys and so on in our collection, and we have a 007 gun kit here for the child who wanted to play 007. We have this ray gun, or whatever you want to call it. Now, this is more of a toy than something that, could have necessarily been worn for Halloween, but you could take the gun with you if you had a costume. And then there were always the costumes that were made specifically as a Halloween costume. So you have Fred Flintstone and the mask, and it's in the original box that it came in, and this little suit for a child. And then you have Disney on Parade and Mickey Mouse ears. And when I was a kid, Davy Crockett was really big. And I remember saving cereal coupons to get a Davy Crockett hat. This is one that came into the collection The one I had was made out of raccoon and had a raccoon tail and was fur and was very different than this. And then this is a little costume, probably 1930s maybe, and the kitty cat mask, and it was for the cat and the fiddle. The cow jumped over the moon, and you can see, let me get the poem right, I should remember it, but it's hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, which is here. The cow jumped over the moon. The little dog laughed to see such a sight, and the dish ran away with the spoon. So there's all kinds of things, and this is part of what we have in our collection. So what I did next is I went to our staff and I said, if you were going to dress up for Halloween, how would you like to dress up? And I got some responses, and so I thought I would go through the collection and see if I could fulfill those ideas that people had. So we'll follow down through our storage area. So Ashley is the curator of women's history and social history. And she and Jennifer Lemak worked very hard on the suffrage exhibit. And so she wanted to see a suffragette represented. And white was something that the suffragettes really liked to wear. So this could have been a suit that would have been worn by the suffragettes. The skirt is, I can't let it down, but the skirt would have hung down longer. It has this really nice little embroidered panel. It would have been buttoned, and this embroidery is repeated on the coat itself. Buttons in the back. It would have had a little bit of fullness in the back. You can sort of see the shape where it would come out over the hip. And this is just a typical suit in our collection. We have other dresses that you can see here from the 1890s into early 1900 when this would have been worn. Then the next, Bridget Enderly, she thought of the fact that for Halloween, everybody goes trick-or-treating and they get candy. And we have some documentation and things from the Hurley Candy Company. And this was an advertisement. This was the building with the sign on the top. And I think I have another advertisement here for cocoa. This is a cocoa bean. And this is a photograph of a candy maker. So she's wearing probably a very typical high-necked bodice from the early 1900s, a mob cap to cover her hair so that it wouldn't get into any of the food, and an apron. So this is a very simple dress from that time period, a linen dress, and a typical apron. Now this is probably fancier than the apron that they might have worn in the candy making with all the ruffles on it. But it's the kind of apron that she would have had that could cover up her front as well as her skirts. Then our next one was Jennifer Lemak thought of a 1960s, 70s protester, for women's rights. Yeah, thank you. And we have a series of t-shirts that were made by a company of women who got together and made these silkscreen t-shirts. So this one is A Woman's Place is in the House and the Senate. Very appropriate for today. Or this one of Ratify the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. Now, this could have been worn either with bell-bottom jeans, as you see here, or this is a patchwork skirt with a patchwork denim vest, probably made from old jeans and things that had fallen apart. And they could have even worn these platform sandals. We have some other crazy platform shoes in here too that, you know, you could have fun with something like this for a costumed event. But needless to say, these garments in our collection will not be worn by people again. They, to preserve them, it's not a good idea to wear things that are in the collection, but this was just an idea to play with. So we'll go around into the other part of our storage here. We also have garments that have come from theatrical companies. We have a number from the 1930s, from companies that did all kinds of different dances and that kind of thing. But a few years ago, the New York State Theater Institute that began in the concourse area here, and they were known for doing The Wizard of Oz. They went out of business, and we acquired some of the costumes from their notable productions. And this is Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. A little bodice and a skirt, and then this apron would have gone over that. We have the Cowardly Lion, but it's in a box, so that's not so easy to see. We have Cinderella, and here is Prince Charming, which would be a lot of fun. Little gilt and glitter. And then the other, I mean, often you have, you know, a child says, well, what do you want to be? I want to be a clown. So we have several clown costumes here. And these were a part of the beech nut foods. And they had a circus bus that traveled around the state advertising, and there are people dressed up as clowns. And so these are clowns, down to a hat with, you know, hair that came out from it. And then another character that comes from Troy is Uncle Sam. And here's a costume for Uncle Sam with the striped pants, and then, you know, the striped vest and these long tails with the stars all over them. I think this is one of my favorites. I would love to wear this one. And I think some of it is that we hear about Uncle Sam so much that it's really nice to see that we have a costume here that is from Uncle Sam. And John, our one of our other staff members, talked about the 1918 flu epidemic and what nurses' uniforms might have looked like. And this is a 1917 World War I nurses' outfit. You can see the Red Cross, and something that would have been possible that if you were being tended to by the nurses during the 1918 pandemic, this might have been what they wore. And then we have band uniforms and other uniforms that again could be something that somebody might choose to dress up for Halloween. And then the last one that we have was Emily thought of Amelia Earhart. And that was a little hard for me to figure out whether we had anything for. Now, this was not anything that Amelia herself would have worn, but this is a pilot's outfit. And you may look at it and you think, my God, that's heavy. It's, but this is a pilot that's flying quite high, and he needed something to keep him warm. So this is all fleece lined. Now, there are photographs of her, you can see, in a leather jacket with a leather pilot's helmet. So when you're up in the air and in the cold, you need something to protect you, which is one reason why you had the leather coats. And this is a World War I leather helmet and goggles that a pilot could have worn, and could have been something similar to what Amelia Earhart would have worn. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a view into our collections. We have a lot of military clothing. We have sports clothing. We have all kinds of different things. So I almost could have chosen anything that someone said and come up and created something. So I hope you all have fun on Halloween. Maybe it's just dressing up at home this year and not necessarily going out and trick-or-treating, but hopefully you can have a good time on Halloween.